Have you ever wondered what meditation long term will do to you? Of course, like it reduces stress and anxiety and all these things that, a lot of people read about. But what does it do long term? And how quickly does it do those things? So in this video, I'm going to share my experience. I'm going to talk about what I've noticed in the short term, medium term, and long term. I have been meditating consistently for 4 years now. And before that, I had periods of meditating for a certain amount of time, stopping, and then starting and stopping and starting and stopping. But for sure, this is my longest, and I do continue to meditate for the rest of my life because it is now a lifestyle. So what changes have I noticed? And those times where I did stop and restart and stop and restart, I know what it does in the very beginning, what it does in the middle. There were stints that would last, 6 months, maybe 10 months. I don't think I ever broke a year during those other times in my life when I was incorporating meditation until this time where, now I'm like over 4 years in. And each time I restarted, and even this time when I initially started, 4 years ago, where I was like, all right, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to make it a habit. The thing that I noticed what happens in the very beginning, right? So is it helps on the surface level in the very beginning. But because in the beginning, all is the surface, it does help a lot. So what do I mean by that? If you sat down to meditate right now and you've never meditated in your life and you are doing correct meditation, what you'll notice on your first sitting, if you're doing a correct meditation, you're doing one that works, you're doing one that has been proven, for instance, with Anapana or breath meditation, where you're just focusing on your breath as it comes in and goes out, and that is your meditation object. During the first sit, you'll start to get those benefits of, feeling a bit more relaxed, feeling maybe a little more settled down, a little calmer. And on the flip side, maybe even a little more energetic, because now with a little anxiety and a little stress gone, that's like weight off your shoulders, and you feel a little lighter and a little more energetic to be able to do things. And so you'll feel this, for the first days, every time you're doing it. Let's say now it's been 5 days of you meditating for 20 minutes each time. This will start to get deeper and deeper, right? You'll start to get a little more and more relaxed each time until you reach a certain amount. Like beginners, like in the beginning, you progress very quickly just because, that's just what happens with a lot of things in life. When you first start something, you just learn so much. And then the learning becomes a little more subtle. The improvements become a little more subtle. So in the days part, you're still, feeling very fast improvements. You're getting much better sleep. You're waking up much more restful. And there's all these physical benefits, even though it is like a mental practice, I guess mental benefits as well, of just more relaxation, deeper sleep, more energetic, more able to handle stress and these kinds of things. And of course, all these continue as I continue to progress to the weeks and the months and the years later on in this video. So the next part is when, you've not been doing it for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're getting into the weeks, multiple weeks of consistently meditating. What I tend to notice is now these benefits of more relaxation, less stress and less anxiety, it starts to help transform what creates that. Let me explain that. At first, what meditation is doing is just decreasing how much stress you have. So let's say you had 100 stress, and your first time you meditated, for the first week that you're meditating 20 minutes, you're still accumulating 100 stress every day. And it might just bring it down to 90, right? Every time you meditate, it's just chipping away or decreasing the level of stress you have. But when you get to the weeks, when you get to a few weeks in of doing it every day, you'll start to change what is causing the stress, right? What is making your stress level go to 100 throughout the day? And a lot of it, or a contributor to it, is your own reactions, your own interpretations, your own contribution to the stress, let's say. So what meditation starts to do in the weeks period is you start to change internally your contribution to the stress, your reactions to the stress, to, let's say, something happens at work. Before you had these several weeks of meditation under your belt, you might have been a bit sharper in your reaction. You might have been, very quick to be annoyed or to be angered, and you might have made the situation worse. You might have created a lot more stress because of your reaction. Whereas now, a few more weeks in, you'll still be quick to react, but not as quick. And you'll still get irritated and angry, but not as irritated and angry. And therefore, because you're a little less irritated, a little less angry, or whatever emotion it might be, you're not making it as worse. You could still be making it worse, right? You're still having your reactions and making the situation bigger, but you're making it less big. And so in the several weeks, it starts to change. Meditation starts to change the accumulation of stress by changing your response to stresses, by increasing your capacity for stress. So now you can, it'll take more stress to frazzle you, right? Your stress capacity, your stress, whatever it's called, increases, so that now if you have that 100 stress that you had before you started meditating, that 100 stress, even if it gets there, will feel like 80. Even if you don't immediately stop to meditate and stuff in the situation. So it's kind of like a muscle getting stronger, right? Like, let's say when you first started going to the gym, you're lifting 20 pounds, let's say. You're doing arm curls with 20 pounds or whatever. After a month or 2 months or weeks or, however long your body takes, that same 20-pound will now feel much lighter. You'll be able to handle a lot more reps of it. You can do a lot more before your muscles are ugh. So that's the same with your mind, where you'll feel the same weight of the stress, or the same thing, but your capacity and your strength to handle more of it before reaching that, failure point comes. So in the weeks, it starts to, some of these benefits of meditation starts to seep into your character and into your internal world and the way that you relate to the world. And now, let's say you've been meditating for a few months now, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, consistently every single day. The next change that you'll start to notice is the external world will start to get better. Your relationships will start to get better. Why? Because, how in the few weeks in, the way that you are reacting to situations is a bit calmer. Your character is starting to change. And now after a few months, the external world is starting to show that enhancements there, right? So in your relationships, let's say you're a little less likely to get angry, and therefore you get into less fights. You get into less arguments. You express love a little bit more. You're just more peaceful and more joyful, and therefore, you're able to work a little bit harder at work. You're able to do a lot more productivity at work without feeling like you're burning out. And so then those start to show fruits, to show benefits. Let's say with your partner, you're now more calmer, you're not as quick to react. That just improves your relationship. And now this external relationship, although you do feel love inside, it is this external relationship you're having with this other person is starting to improve. And like this, right? Your work, your parents, your friends, whatever it is in your life, even going to the gym, doing exercising will improve, because a calmer mind can lift more weights, right? And there's all these benefits that start to appear in the external world, all at the same time. The inner changes that are happening within you, the transformation is deepening. So those character changes that meditation leads to, right? Just being less reactive, being more equanimous, being able to just be a little bit happier and more joyful, less existential dread, all these kinds of things start to change your character. And now I do want to say, right, if you stop, right, let's say you've meditated 5 months in a row, 6 months in a row, and then you stop, and then you restart, a year later, 2 years later, whenever later, you don't just pick up right here. Like, let's say you did 6 months, and in 6 months, you're seeing all these changes, all these positivities. The moment that you start again after a couple of years does not mean this is where you start from. So it is kind of like a maintain it or lose it kind of situation, much the same way that, like being super in shape is, like if you were super consistent and exercising and going to the gym all the time, and, you had 6-pack abs, and you stopped working out for 2 years and then you restarted, it doesn't mean after your first few workouts or even after a month that you're going to go back to how you were when you were at your peak. Right? And so it's kind of like, if you don't maintain it, you're going to lose it. And it's the same with meditation. And so with that note, just keep that in mind. It is a maintenance. It is like a consistency thing that's really important to like feel all these things. And these times too, right? These are just the times that I've noticed for myself. And by that, I just mean, after a few weeks, I noticed this. After a few months, I noticed this. Your time frame might be different, right? Yours, it might be what I'm talking about days, you might feel in weeks, or what I'm talking about months, you might feel in weeks, right? It just depends. It could be faster or slower, but just to give you a general idea of the path and how deep it goes and how it transforms you. So now let's say you've gone from a few months, right? 2, 3, 4 months, and you're getting into the 6, 7, 8, 9 months, you're being super consistent. What happens then? What I've noticed is this is where meditation really starts to change your worldview. It starts to change your perception, your understanding of yourself, of people, of the world, of, everything. And how it does that, right? And all this, of course, is just my own understanding and how it makes sense to me. This may not be true. This may, not be super scientific, but this is, this is what I believe, because this is what I have been experiencing, right? The way that our worldview develops is we look at information, whether we're seeing TV, we're watching things on the TV, whether we're hearing it from people, whether we're seeing it with our eyes, whatever it is, there's some external information that's happening, and we're analyzing that situation, and then we're putting our interpretations and we're putting our own opinions on it, and then we make conclusions from that, and then this mega conclusions of general life stuff that we've accumulated, then we say, oh, this is my worldview, right? So what meditation now is doing is introducing a different set of information that your mind is analyzing. And this set of information is unlike external information, right? And this external information, right, it could be you're watching wars or crimes or this and that, right? All this external stuff. That's what I mean by it. Just literally everything outside of you is different information than what's inside of you. And what's inside of you, like, let's say you're doing this meditation of focusing on your breath. And this is the information that you are paying attention to, that you are consuming, let's say. And this information, it has a particular quality that is free from, let's say, human subjectivity. And again, this is just my own way of understanding it. If it makes sense to you and you're like, yeah, that makes sense, let it make sense. If it doesn't, you don't have to believe it. So in all these external situations, let's say you're watching the news and there's some guy did some crime. That information is tainted by, right, that person, not tainted, clouded. A factor of what brought that information to be what it is the person that's involved, the society that they're in, their worldviews. It's very prejudiced, whatever it might be. There's a lot of subjectivity, right? Not everybody commits a crime, and not anybody has never committed any crime or any wrongdoing, right? We're not perfect. So there's always this scale. And anyway, before I just start going down this rabbit hole, there is when you're focusing on this breath that's coming in and coming out, there's less subjectivity in it, right? There is more, it's more like this is a biological, physical process that is happening. That, yes, there are some influences to what makes the breath feel the way that it feels for you, depending on your lung size, depending on, maybe you've got some mucus in there, it like feels different, right? There's things that change the way the information of your breath comes in and out is coming in. But ultimately, it is more objective in the sense that there's less human intervention, or like there's less psychological, social, political influences on why the breath is breathing, right? It's just more like, hey, the breath is just happening. And that is the beauty of this information. Because the breath just happening just sounds, not that serious. It's just like, yeah, we breathe. Of course we breathe. But how the breath works, right, is there's all this physics that's happening. There's all this biology. There's all these chemicals. There's all these universal forces, right? Gravity. There's all basically what allows this system to function, this physical system to function. All of that information is influencing the way that the breath is being what it is. And when you're paying attention to the breath and you're just focusing and you're consuming this information, you're able to consume the information of all these other influences on the breath, all these influences that create the breath, right? Without the biology, without the rules that our DNA is following and the rules that it follows from physics, from the physical world, all that you're observing in its like purity without it being tainted. So this information that you're observing now, you have this information, which is like the universal order and harmony, which is creating you, which is allowing, this complex system to function. Now this information, you start to incorporate that into all the other informations that you have as well from, the external world. And now what happens when this internal information, you're just observing the breath, and through the breath, you're observing the physical laws, the physical world creating, maintaining, enhancing, doing this body, which is doing this breath, right? This information then you start to combine, and not combine in the sense that, oh, what does my breath tell me about this thing that I saw on TV? Not like combining in that way, but that you now have a different perspective. You're including a different perspective, and being able to see things from multiple perspectives is amazing, because it really just changes the way that you see things and the way that you understand things. And so this, I think, is how your worldview of the external world starts to get transformed, in my opinion, for the better as you meditate, right? Because let's say, even with the things we talked about earlier, when you are less stressed and you're less anxious, and again, I don't mean that you have zero stress and zero anxiety, but just less than you had before, the way that you then see situations starts to change, right? The things that would have pissed you off before, maybe now they just annoy you, right? That change, when you've been meditating 10, 11, 12 months, is starting to really change your worldview. Like now it's not something that is happening on the surface. When I talked about in the days of like beginning to meditate, it's a lot of the changes happening on the surface. Now when it's like 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months, whatever, however many months, it starts to change very deeply, like your subconscious. Like it starts to change your worldview. It starts to change the lens through which you see things. And this change is really phenomenal, and it really starts to enhance so that you do see a more calmer world. You start to be a little more objective, slightly more objective. Again, not like, oh, you're absolutely objective now because you meditate, but you're just able to in being calmer and seeing a situation, you're able to see the truth of the situation a lot more than when you're emotional, right? Do you remember the last time that you got super emotional, you lost the balance of your mind, you just weren't cool anymore? And then the things that you say, the things that you do, later on, you're like, why did I do that? And the reason you did that is because those emotions, that intensity of whatever you were feeling, intoxicated you and changed your view so that, what you see and what you experience and respond to was tainted by that worldview or like that perception or that emotion. And therefore you were like creating more negativity just because you were like in this unbalanced state. So when your mind is more balanced though, you don't say, man, I was so calm in that situation, I regret that so much, unless you should have been maybe not calm in that situation. But anyway, my main point is, if you have a more balanced mind and you're not like intoxicated by emotions and you're not, losing your cool and like, oh man, I was so angry, I did this, I can't believe I did that, why did I do that? If you start to have less of that, that is what essentially long-term meditation does when you're like in the months, is your base, even what your base of what you thought your cool was, or what you thought, not being angry was, that base starts to get even calmer, get even more balanced. And just as you can tell that, hey, when I was really angry and I said this and I did that, I shouldn't have done this. But when I'm sober, like if I was not angry, I would have, responded in a better way. You have this knowledge and you fully believe like, yeah, like if I'm, free from anger, free from hatred, free from annoyance, that I will, respond in a responsible way and I'll be able to handle the situation. Now imagine with meditation, this is again your base, you're just normal, where you're like, you're cool. Now this meditation brings it even down here and calmer. And that this normal that you used to be like, this was my normal, you'll be like, whoa, I used to do so much stuff. I used to react in so many ways that I never even noticed because it was so subtle. So it starts to, meditation really starts to, change your outlook on life, make you more objective when you're doing it for that long. Now, when you start to get to years, like let's say 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, these benefits start to become your character traits, right? Just like as the development of, from that many, many months, 9, 10, 11, 12 months, when you're getting to the 1, 2 year mark, that just continues to deepen. Your character continues to, transform. You start to become a little happier. You start to become more happier, I guess, than weeks. But then 4 or 5 years in, you'll get more happier. And I assume, 10, 20 years in, you'll be even more happier. They did do this one study that was looking at monks and that were long-term meditators, and it was looking at their brain activity. And one research showed that there's like a certain brainwave that our brain goes into when we are having a novel experience. Like let's say your first bite of a dish when you sit down for dinner, so delicious. That first bite of like amazing food, your brain enters a certain state. I think, was it gamma? I think it might have been gamma state, whatever. It has a name that is not like your normal state. These long-term meditators, their mind, their brain waves were like always in gamma state. They were always in that state of like, wow, of like, whoa, this is amazing. Can you just imagine, right? Having that state of mind when you're like, imagine that first bite when you sit down for dinner, you've been coming home from a stressful job and your partner makes you some amazing food and you just sit down, take the first bite, and it is just like everything is okay now and it just feels so good, and you kind of get reminded a little bit that like, well, this is worth it because life can feel so amazing. Instead of that being restrained to like that, that meal, especially in the beginning, because as you know, the first few bites are the best, and then your brain's like, all right, I guess this is what we're eating now. Can you imagine that for your whole day. Just the whole day, you're in this state of how amazing is all of this. And that is ultimately what makes meditation so worth it, to do it every single day, is to be like in that state of awe, just in that state of blissfulness every single day, every single moment. Of course, life happens here and there, but can you just imagine what that's like for your base brain state to be just an incredible one? So what you'll notice, and what I've noticed, is when you get to the years part, right, meditation starts to help you. And what do I mean by this? Like, of course, it's been helping you this whole time. Of course, you've been, like from the first meditation session, meditation should be helpful, right? You should start to feel a little calmer, and all that good stuff in general. But this is where, let's say, you can start to lean on meditation. And lean on meditation in a way that it starts to help you without you putting effort. So before, you have to meditate. You have to meditate every single day. You have to make time for it. You face emotions that are like, I don't want to do it. I want to do this thing else. This is so boring. You have this whole journey with wanting to do it. But when you get in a year plus, 2 years, it starts to, meditation starts to become easier to do. It becomes easier to let go of that resistance to meditation, even though it's really ironic. It's like, you'll notice, even if you meditated for a week in a row, you'll notice that it enhances your life, right? It enhances your mind. It makes you feel better, 100%, all of this, right? If you've ever meditated and stopped after a while, you know it's good for you, but then restarting is so hard. And forming that habit is so hard. And there's a lot of things that go into, why I think that is. But at the end of the day, that resistance that you have of restarting, that resistance that you have of being disciplined with it, how hard it is on the day-to-day grind, that starts to change. And I know it's a long time. Why does it take a year or more to get to a point where that resistance is less? It's still there at times, but it's more so you've built this relationship with meditation, with your breath, with your inner self. And now this inner self starts to pull you, right? Starts to pull you along so that when you are weak, it will help you to pull you along. And yeah, this is really hard to describe, but a way to put it is, if you meditate for a year every single day, it'll then become just a whole lot easier to just keep on going. I'll just say that, let's just keep it at that, where meditation starts to flip, and now it starts to, it's walking with you now, where before you were just trying to walk by yourself on this path, now it's walking with you. And now what I've noticed after, 3-4 years of consistent meditating is now my meditation is not about myself. And it's not about these benefits, and it's not about, less stress and anxiety, or, what happens externally, better work, better relationships. And it's more about, what is this reality? What is this existence that is allowing me to be? And so when now, let's say even when I do breath meditation and I'm just focusing on my breath coming in and out, it's, how is this breath happening? How is this breath functioning? What are the inputs? What is the system? What is the framework? What's the dynamics that's happening that is contributing to this? How is this then creating me? How is this breath sustaining my life? Because apparently if I stop breathing for a few minutes, I'm going to die. How is this working? How is this fueling that? How is this fueling my life? So there's all these deep questions that meditation starts to become way more about that. It starts to become way more about what is ultimate reality and how is that reality manifesting in this form and in this shape. And what is this that I'm observing and how is this connected to all of that? But rather than how is it connected to all of that, it's kind of like experiencing it, right? It's not just a question, like a mental, philosophical question. I'm just literally watching the breath and I'm like, how? How is this doing what it's doing? I literally have no idea. I've literally been meditating for so long and I have no idea how this works. I have no idea how this works, right? I get all these benefits from meditating, and to be honest, that's like a big part of what keeps me here. But like my actual meditation, when I'm actually meditating, it's just like this curiosity of what is life? Who am I? What am I? How is this working? And so this is where, meditation, you're using it to explore the nature of reality as it pertains to this mind and body and this existence. Of course, we can't experience anything else. But how is reality connected to this? How is it manifesting? What is happening? And this is what meditation then starts to become about. And this is where you're getting the real crux of the benefit of meditation, right? Like why they say meditation is spiritual, why the reason it is because it's tuning you into something much greater than yourself, right? The physical world, the physical laws, whatever you want to call it, that is facilitating this body and in turn facilitating this breath that I'm focusing on. I am able to not necessarily observe that, not observe, I can't like see gravity or experience gravity. I mean, I guess I can feel my bum on the chair, and I could say, well, I'm observing gravity. But anyway, how reality is manifesting as this breath. And so I am observing, by seeing my breath, I am seeing how it's connected invisibly. Maybe I'll never see it, but I am observing this much deeper truth, deeper existence. And this is, ultimately what meditation is about. And this is the highest fruit that you can get from meditation, which is also the highest fruit that you can get as a human being, right? Like, not to offend anyone, but better than work, better than money. I might even say better than relationships. Actually, I will say better than relationships because, and now I'm not saying don't do any of these things, but the ultimate purpose, the highest purpose that we can have is, self-actualization, self-realization, wisdom, understanding of reality. This is the highest thing that a human can accomplish. And I truly believe that. And so meditation offers you a way to realize your highest potential. And some people might not be interested. Some people are like, nope, I just want to make a lot of money. I want to make a lot of money. But there's no guarantee that money will lead to happiness. And some people are like, well, I don't care about happiness. I just care about money. And, we all know what happens to those people. Not great things. They may get a lot of money, but then not great things happen to their life. Yet, I have yet to find someone who has been like, I pursued self-knowledge. I pursued wisdom. I pursued understanding of life. And I pursued the ability to create joy and happiness within myself. And, I didn't like it. It wasn't worth it. I've never heard anybody say that. I have heard people say, I chased money, and now that I'm dying, it wasn't worth it. Right? I've heard stories, I've heard it from people. So, and I know myself too, there's times where I've just worked so hard to make money and then I'm like, is this it? I thought it would be more. But with meditation, you can't even begin to imagine how much it'll give you when you get to this stage. Like you can't know how fulfilling it is to have knowledge about yourself, to know who you are. Like the satisfaction of knowing who you are, you can't even imagine it until you're there. And so with meditation, it's like it's gonna give you way more than you could even comprehend. Whereas with like external things, like let's say even with a relationship, a lot of it is you have these huge expectations and you have to kind of bring them into reality, right? You have to be like, oh, wait, my spouse, I have to learn to live with my spouse because this isn't like easy and it's not like, it's not going 100% how I want it to go. And I have to like change some of my expectations and I gotta, you gotta do that. And kind of like you have this dream, this big thing, and then it kind of needs to come into reality. Whereas with meditation, you might not even think it'll give you a lot. Or you might think it'll give you a lot, but then it's gonna give you even more because that's just how crazy meditation is. So that is what you will notice after many years of meditating is it'll start to really tap into, the deepest and most fulfilling part of what it is to exist as a human being, which is that knowledge about the self and that knowledge about who we are and what it is. And again, this has to also be maintained, right? Just like if you're in a relationship and you feel a lot of love and you don't maintain it and you start to, maybe neglect your partner or be more neglectful, the love is going to fade and it's going to go. And it doesn't matter that you had an apex of your love where you guys were doing all these things. It's going to go away. It's the same with meditation. Like, it doesn't matter that you like got to a point where you gain all this wisdom and you're just living in this blissful state. If you stop meditating, that blissful state will go away. The wisdom will go away in the sense that it won't be your experience anymore. Like earlier when I was talking about those long-term monks who've meditating and their brain waves are always in this state of just awesomeness. I bet you if they stop meditating for a couple months, they'll go straight back down to the normal brainwave. And that's just how it is. So all of this wisdom as well of self-actualization and knowledge and wisdom about the self and all this kind of good stuff, you still have to keep on meditating to keep and build on the knowledge. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a long one. I appreciate you, and I hope you take care.